Welcome to All Villa No Filler. Remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. As of recording, Douglas Luiz is still close to joining Juventus, according to media reports. It's now said he will join the Italian side for around 25 million euros plus two Juve players. The deal did include Samuel Iling-Junior and midfielder Weston McKennie, but the American McKennie has now been replaced by Argentinian midfielder Enzo Barrenechea. Easy for me to say. To find out more, I'm joined today by Lorenzo Bettoni, he's editor of Football Italia, a website for English-speaking fans of Italian football. Lorenzo, welcome back to the show again. Always great to chat to you. So what's the latest on this deal?
As you said, Barrenechea is likely to replace McKennie in this maxi swap deal between Juventus and Aston Villa. Probably a few things will change on the financial side of the deal because Juventus will have to pay a little bit more than before. With McKennie was expected to be somewhere between 18 and 20 million, and with Barrenechea, the deal is going to be a transfer fee around 25 million for Aston Villa. Of course, this is because Barrenechea is not as established as McKennie is. He's younger, he has different characteristics, different skill sets, but I guess we'll be discussing this very, very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, so just briefly on McKennie, what exactly happened there? Did he just not want to come to Birmingham? Was there a fallout with Juventus? What's the deal with him?
The problem, talking to a few people from what we've understood, is that it wasn't really a problem with Aston Villa. It wasn't all sorted with Aston Villa, not 100%. But the main issues was especially with Juventus on some exit terms. There were reports from Tuttosport and Fabrizio Romano earlier this week mentioning these. Let's say clash. Wouldn't say exactly a clash, but McKennie wanted to negotiate some exit terms from Juventus because he still has a year left in his contract, but Juventus were probably not willing to negotiate, so they just couldn't make the deal work. I don't think it was a big issue with Aston Villa. I think he would have agreed to terms with Villa. I think it was more between Juventus and McKennie. They've been in talks over a new contract for a while because, as I said, his contract is passing in 2025. But there was no agreement, so he's on the market because Juventus just want to sell him because they don't want to lose him for free at the end of next year, at the end of next season. So it all comes to something in between Juventus and McKennie rather than McKennie and Aston Villa.
Okay, so I'm Barrenechea. I'm going to get you saying that. He's 23, a central midfielder. What can you tell us about him? He's probably not that well known over here in the UK.
No, he's different from McKennie. We discussed McKennie's skill set in the latest chat we had, and Aston Villa are getting a different sort of player. Here we're talking about a younger player than McKennie, first of all, but we're also talking about somebody who's. You asked me the other time if McKennie would suit the central midfield role, defensive midfielder role, and those sort of probably not deep line playmaker, but a holding midfielder playing in front of the defense. And Barrenechea is exactly this sort of player. Contrary to McKennie, has, I think, better positioning skills. I think he has more room for improvement. Maybe under Unai Emery is going to develop into a different sort of player. We can't know that. But what we know until now is that he's been played mostly in front of the defense. So perhaps don't expect too many goals or assists from him. He had one goal and one assist for Frosinone, who were eventually relegated to Serie B this season. Dramatic relegation on the final match day. They played brilliant football in the first part of the campaign. So this is a sort of player with decent physicality, I would say, with good technical skills, and he still has room for improvement. The starting point is that he's a holding midfielder, a pure defensive midfielder. Again, perhaps he can develop into something different under Unai Emery, but right now, this is the sort of player that Aston Villa are getting.
Okay, that is an area where Villa need a bit more depth, considering Boubacar Kamara is out with an ACL injury probably for quite a while. How good was Barrenechea for Frosinone?
It was good actually. At some point, he had a few injury issues, but not even that much. He played consistently. He played very, very good, especially in the first part of the season when there wasn't too much pressure for Frosinone. I mean, he was one of the best player in that team alongside Mattias Sulet, who is one of his closest friends, another Juventus loanee, another player linked to Aston Villa. They're very close friends. They're actually on holiday together right now, so they're very close. And it was a good season. It was the first season first full season in Serie A for him because he arrived at Juventus at the beginning of 2020, just before the COVID pandemic. And he played for the Primavera team. He played for the under 23 team, which is now called Next Gen at Juventus, playing in the third division. A lot of players are coming through this second team at Juventus and developing and becoming, players who have actually moved into senior football. For example, we saw Radu Dragusin in January. He went to Tottenham from Genoa. He's one of those players who grew up in the Juventus academy and he played in the under 23 squad as well. Um, Samuel Iling-Junior, Kenan Yildiz, they all did the same trajectory in the Juventus youth sector. Um, when he was playing for Primavera, Barrenechea, he had an injury in 2021, a ligament injury, a cruciate ligament injury in his knee. And I have to say he recovered quite well from that because he's been playing consistently then uh, for Frosinone and for Juventus as well. He had his senior debut at Juventus in the Champions League game against PSG. That was in 2022, and then 2023 he started his first Serie A game against Torino. So the debuts were quite exciting for him because first PSG and then a Turin derby. And then he got his loan move to Frosinone last summer, and I have to say it was quite successful despite Frosinone's relegation.
Right, and how highly rated is he at Juventus? Is there some disappointment? Do you think that they're sort of having to let him go as part of this deal?
He was probably one of the players that the new coach Thiago Motta wanted to see and try during the preseason. But at the same time, I think that Douglas Luiz is a big priority for Juventus and Thiago Motta right now. So he's a higher priority than any other player in central midfield. So don't forget that Juventus, they're still negotiating with Adrian Rabiot because his contract expires at the end of the month. So they need to get an established player. They need to have a solid option in the middle of the park for next season when they're going to return to the Champions League. Uh, Somebody who they can strongly rely on to start the season. So of course it's a little bit disappointing, but I guess Juventus and Motta find it's acceptable because again they need to have an established player in central midfield.
Right, and with Barrenechea as well, would you say his sort of key attributes are, his tackling, and is he sort of quite a calm player on the ball? Is he a good footballing CDM essentially?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the best thing for him is the positioning skills. I mean, he's very smart tactically. I find it a very smart player in tactical terms. That he has quite a few good stats in terms of passing and defending. He still, I think, for the physical qualities that he has, he can still improve in winning duels, in being tougher in central midfield, and I think the Premier League would help in these regards because of course he's one of the toughest and most challenging leagues in Europe from the physical point of view. So it's going to be he will need to be even tougher in central midfield, and he has to learn that quickly at Aston Villa. Um, Again, he has some good um, passing skills as well. He has a successful passes close to 90% passing accuracy for last season, around 85, 86%. So he's not that bad for a relatively young player. It's a good move for him. I mean, he played for a team last season that fought for relegation and in the end were actually relegated. He had a few appearances for Juventus, but Aston Villa is probably wouldn't say the biggest move of his career because Juventus was quite a big move for him, but he has a chance to become an established player in a top league now. So I think he can develop his skill sets and perhaps even become a different sort of footballer. I don't know, but what Aston Villa get on paper is a complete midfielder, I think.
Okay, it's great to hear that. Do you think that just at first Aston Villa fans might just have to be a bit patient with him, might start off as a bit of a squad player and that, under Unai Emery, he'll be a player who learns. Just basically a player who won't immediately come and start, but we'll just kind of see develop over the next year or two.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the stats from the defensive point of view suggest that he still has room for improvement. And of course, again, he's joining a tougher league. He's joining a league where he should expect a lot of physical challenges. And so I think he has to learn, he has to adapt. But he's one of those players who can really put intensity, who has great stamina, he has great determination, like most of the South American players. So, of course, patience will be needed because, I mean, Douglas Luiz was and still is until the move to Juventus is completed, a very important part of this Aston Villa side. And so it's going to be hard for Barrenechea to replace him from the very beginning. But with patience, I'm pretty sure he's going to become an important part of this Aston Villa side.
Okay, well, massive thanks for coming on, Lorenzo. Chatted to you last week about Iling-Junior and Weston McKennie. It went down very, very well. Got lots of lovely feedback on it, and people really liked you particularly. Not so much me, you, but Lorenzo, for anybody who doesn't know and is interested in Italian football, where can we find you online and Football Italia?
It's footballitalia.net, and I am Lorebetto on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, I can strongly recommend following that. Thank you for coming on, Lorenzo.
Thank you very much.